Welcome back to the Vi Media channel, and thank you for tuning in. I am Eric Brown, president of Vi Media and partner at Mogul Holdings. Today, we have the Chief Performance Officer and also partner at Mogul Holdings, as well as Vi Media Chief Performance Officer there and in charge of all things ad-related, Matt McGrail. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're going to get into some things today, really taking a deep dive into Google Ads. So we had the resident expert at Vi Media, Zach on a couple weeks ago to talk about SEO, and now we got Matt on to talk about ads. So when we're looking at ads, the first thing we do is research, right?
Right.
So either going into the existing ad campaign and then also looking at Keyword Planner as well, which we know Keyword Planner can be hit and miss when it comes to estimates, but
course.
at least we have somewhere of a starting point. What are some things that you take a look at when it comes to research prior to even bringing someone on, or say after we bring a client on when you're doing research in order to build out the campaign?
Yeah, so I think a big thing where it starts off is just looking at first their website, their competitors. That kind of gives you a good, groundwork to be able to see like, oh, what different types of services, what different types of keywords are already on these pages.
Mhm.
And then, I put those keywords in the keyword planner and it'll give you just hundreds and thousands of different suggestions for more keywords we can use in the campaign. And that's kind of where we start off from there. So, keyword planner is, a big thing. And, it has its downsides, but it's really important as far as being able to see, kind of like what the search volume is behind the keywords. It's not perfect. It's not going to give you an exact amount, but
Mhm.
it'll give you a good idea.
At least gives
And
us a range.
yeah, yeah, and then, of course, you go into the planner, and then you can see kind of a good idea of, like, how much you can spend on the campaign, which is always nice as well. So yeah.
It seems like a lot of people have an understanding that you can just spend tens of thousands of dollars on Google and the leads will continue to come in. But we know for a majority of industries that it doesn't work that way. You can't just pay your way to the top and continue to get people when there's only so much search volume out there,
Right,
right?
right, and that's a good thing, with keyword planner is it's gonna give you that idea of how much search volume there is, and especially, once you go into the projections after
Mhm.
keyword planner, and you can get an idea of how much you can spend. Kind of going back to what you're alluding to, it's not unlimited, right?
Yep.
There's only so many people searching for a specific service, and usually it's very competitive. You have, you know, 10, 20, sometimes 30 plus different
Mhm.
competitors also bidding for those same keywords. And then on top of that, only maybe 10% of the clicks are going to go to the ads in the first place.
Yep.
So, when all is said and done, the amount of searches that are actually going to the ads is a small piece of the pie. And then the pie gets much smaller when, you have to share it with all the competitors as well. So,
Yep, yep. So we know research is important, and when we're a keyword planner, it's always interesting to see the graph, right? Because eventually it gets to the point where spend continues to increase, but really the conversions just don't continue
mhm.
anymore. So that's something to really take a look at if if you're talking to a marketing agency or building out your own campaign for your own company or you're a marketing manager, whatever you do, is looking at those projections is at least going to give you a very good starting point where to start at. So,
And just real quick, I think one more thing
mhm,
that's really underutilized on the research side is, once you kind of figure out what keywords you want to use, just simply typing those in and seeing your competitor's ad copy
yep,
and just looking at it, analyzing and being asking yourself, how can I make this ad copy better, right?
mhm.
That's just one way to get, a competitive advantage right there is seeing your competitors' ads based on the keywords that you want to show up for and just, improving on top of that.
We know a lot of the time that with ads that when you type something in, a lot of the time it's not super related to what you're actually searching for.
Yeah.
Whereas with our clients, how we want to have it set up is we have different, specific ad groups set up for the different services.
Hmm.
That way, if someone's searching for, a plumbing company or specifically for like a water heater, say, for example, then the ad copy is going to say water heater, not just plumbing company and things like that. So there's a lot to do when it comes to, optimizing, of course, the ads. So when it comes to ad campaigns, we have a few different types, obviously search, display, video, shopping, but I wanted to really get into the different bidding strategies. So we got manual and automated bidding, maximize clicks, target CPA, target return on ad spend. How do you kind of navigate those waters, determine what's gonna work best?
Right. So that when it comes to bidding strategies, they kind of fall into one of two buckets. You
Mhm,
have your automated bidding strategies, and you have your more manual bidding strategies. Right. The automated bidding strategies like max conversions and target CPA, you really can't use those efficiently until you have enough data to give Google. Google wants to see, on average about 30 conversions plus a month.
mhm,
Ideally, you can start with less
mhm.
before you use, max conversions and target CPA, target CPA being target cost per acquisition, AKA how much you want to spend for a lead.
Yep.
So those are the ideal strategies to use. But of course, you want that data there because if Google doesn't know what keywords, what gender, age, location, where the conversions are coming from,
Mhm.
they're not going to be able to
Doesn't have any
optimize
data
for
to
it,
go
right?
off of.
So
Yeah.
to kind of kick things off with a campaign, we usually typically start with max clicks or we start with manual cost per click, right? So this is kind of a couple of reasons for this is that kind of gives us the baseline of like this is where we're going to build our data. We're going to build up our data with max clicks or manual cost per click,
Mhm.
and then once we have enough data, we're going to move to one of those smart bidding strategies such as max conversions or target CPA. Once we have enough data to use those.
Makes sense, makes sense. So then we also have not only bidding strategies, but then we have, how we actually set up the campaigns themselves. So looking at specifically, if it's an exact match or if it's, a phrase match or broad match, how do we determine what we're setting up there?
Yeah, so there's three different types of match types with Google Ads. There's broad match, phrase match, exact match. Um, broad, let's say your broad keyword is roofing company.
Hmm.
If you use broad, Google's going to match that to everything under the sun, even if it's not necessarily related.
Sure.
And with phrase match, that becomes a bit more relevant. Then with exact match, you're gonna be matched with the search terms that are the most relevant. So
Hmm.
kinda in the landscape of Google Ads today, not too many people I know using broad match. We don't really use broad match internally. It's usually a good combination of phrase match and exact match. Exact match is great because you kind of have a good understanding of what's going to be coming in, right? It's
Yep.
going to be heavily related to the keyword we're using. Phrase match is a bit different because you are going to get matched to some broader search terms. So we do want to have some of those in the campaign just so that we can see, hey, what other search queries are popping up for this keyword. It gives us a good idea of being able to find new keywords to add as well,
Hmm.
which is very important. Um, and, phrase match is also important. Even though I prefer exact match, phrase match is still important because like I said, it covers ground that you're not going to cover with exact match, and you're going to find new opportunities that you would not have otherwise, been able to obtain.
Yeah, and then obviously you have to go in and clean that stuff out with phrase match, right?
Yep.
So it's good that you're getting in front of people who you necessarily wouldn't have gotten in front of with the exact match because you wouldn't have known that people searching whatever, something similar would have come in as a lead and convert. But obviously with phrase match, you have the ability to get in front of people that aren't relevant as well.
Yeah, yeah. Like a good example is a lot of times with the phrase match is going back to the roofing company example.
Hmm.
Google will match if someone's looking for a competitor, a different
Every
roofing
other roofing
company,
company. Yeah.
that's going to trigger that as phrase match. It would not trigger it as exact match.
Right.
So you definitely have to keep an eye on it when you use phrase match. Like I said, it gives you a good idea of what new stuff you can add, and
Hmm.
it covers ground that you wouldn't otherwise have. But you need to make sure that, whenever those competitor keywords are coming in or anything that's not relevant, you add them as a negative keyword.
Yep.
And, going to negative keywords a bit,
Hmm.
what that does is you add it as a negative keyword. Let's say the word that you want to add is hiring because you don't
Hmm.
want people, looking for a job to be clicking on your ad.
Yep.
So you add the word hiring as a negative keyword, which prevents anyone searching roofing company hiring near me
Sure.
from showing up and triggering your ad.
Right. Or job or cheap.
Mhm.
We always add competitor names, which can be time consuming, especially in new markets. But we have to because we know. Like, okay, just say, for example, you're a business owner that doesn't they don't care. They just wanna take up as much market share as possible.
Mhm.
Fine. You can bid on, I guess, your competitor names, or just have it set up phrase match. You're gonna be bidding on them regardless. But we know when it comes to if you want your cost per lead, you wanna maximize conversions, spending money on competitors is not a way to do so.
Yeah, no, I agree. Unless you have a behemoth of a campaign
Mhm.
and you're looking for that last new opportunity to scale.
Yep.
You know, unless you're in that predicament, I would not target competitors. But we've had clients before. Trying to shove $50,000 into one local market. At
Yep.
that point, you do have to target competitors. But for the typical client out there in the local space, that might be spending 3, 5K a month. Definitely not a tactic you want to use.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to the actual ad copy itself, so you kind of went into it a little bit when we're talking about research and looking at what competitors are using when it comes
Mhm.
to their ads. What is best practices, or what are some things we do that a lot of other companies don't? I know, for example, what I talk about is the dynamic text. So here in
Mhm.
St. Louis, obviously we have a ton of townships, Chesterfield, etc. When someone is searching in those areas, we can dynamically insert, say, best plumbing company in that area, for example.
Mhm.
Just trying to get as specific as really you want that ad to be as specific as possible to what that person searched for
Right.
in order to maximize click throughs and maximize the amount of people that are seeing your ad that are actually clicking on your ad. So what are some things we take a look at there?
Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely a handful of cool, features that we utilize with our text ads to make sure that they, pop out as much as possible.
Mhm.
One that you just mentioned is dynamic location insertion. So, going back to my example with roofing, so the headline could be "Roofing Company in St. Louis,"
Mhm.
but that St. Louis can be added dynamically so that if you're searching from Chesterfield, it's going to say roofing company in Chesterfield. If
Right.
you're searching from De Pere, it's going to say roofing company in De Pere. And that just makes it more relevant and gives a more local feel to the ad. So that's one cool thing that we do with the ads that I see not utilized enough.
Mhm.
Um, Another thing that we do is we use keyword insertion. So, another headline may be roofing company in St. Louis. However, depending on the keyword that triggered the search, that keyword is actually what's going to pop up in the ad copy,
Mhm.
which makes it as relevant as possible to what the end user is searching for, which increases click through rate, makes it more likely, of course, to click and convert,
Mhm.
and it also increases quality scores. So the more relevant the ad, Google actually is going to give you a bit of a discount and charge you less on the click because it's more relevant to the user search. So those are a couple cool things. A couple things are a bit, maybe more obvious.
Mhm.
Um, of course, you want to have your call to actions kind of in that second headline in your ad. Um, it's something that I see a lot of people don't include, but
Yeah.
just like call today, book an appointment today. You
Mhm.
want to keep that top of mind because that, of course,
That's
is the end goal.
that is the
That is the
goal.
whole goal
Yeah.
is for them to
Yeah.
take action. So just having
Mhm.
the call to action in there is super important. And really, the only other thing I can think of is just including in the ad copy or the headlines anything that you can see as a competitive advantage that you have over your competitors.
Yeah.
Because, you're either going to be showing up anywhere between you're gonna be showing up in the ad spot. There's gonna be two or three other ads up at the top.
Mhm.
You wanna make sure your ad stands out. So if you do have a competitive advantage against your competitors, make sure you include that in a headline. Your ad will stand out a lot more, higher click-through rate, lower costs.
Yeah.
Definitely another very important thing to do.
What about the image?
The image. So image extensions,
Because it seems like most people don't use images on the ads.
yeah, so image extensions are fairly new. They haven't been around too long, maybe a year,
Okay.
2 years max. You actually don't get access to that right when you create an account. You have to have some account history. But
Okay.
once you get access to it, I would say, um, is it important to utilize it? Yes, just because it makes your ad stand out that much more. Anything that you have, available to add to your ad, I say do it.
Yep.
One of the cool things that we do is, a lot of times people have a roofing company and they'll have a photo of shingles or
Mhm.
an HVAC company and they'll have, a tech working on,
Yes.
a new unit. just photos that are very obvious
Mhm.
and they don't really stand out too well. A lot of times we use a red arrow that points straight to our ad,
Yep.
which is kind of a
It's like a YouTube thumbnail.
yeah, it's kind of clickbaity, but
Mhm.
it's a tactic that I haven't seen anyone else use,
Works
and
well.
yeah, no, it works really well because, like I said, everyone else is using just a very generic photo,
Mhm.
and while the photo does help you stand out, how
The
much
same
is it going to help you
photos,
stand
yeah,
out if it's the same thing that
everyone
everyone else
else.
is using?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. So, obviously, we want them to click through, then we're gonna send them if you're just say a service-based company, we're gonna send them to a landing page. We don't wanna
Right.
send them to a website, and we that's a big thing, like, if you're a marketing company or you're running ads right now and it's just going to the homepage of your website, I guarantee that you are saying to yourself every month, "Why am I spending so much money cost per lead?" Chances are you probably don't even have that set up, though, if you're doing that. So you don't want to send them to a website. You don't even want to send them to the service page on the website that the ad is talking about. You want to send them to an actual landing page because the landing page is built for conversions, right? A
Mhm.
website page is built obviously to convert, but also in terms of ranking to make sure you're getting people to the website. With a landing page, we don't care what Google thinks. We just strictly want to either get that person to call, fill out a form or whatever the
Mhm.
call to action is going to be on that page. So we use Unbounce. Um, so I know one thing with nice with Unbounce, again, we talked about dynamic texting. It's also on the landing page as well. So it'll
Right.
specifically we can essentially have the ad say the same thing as what's being said on the landing page. So talk to me about landing pages.
Yeah, so, like you said, we use Unbounce, super cool feature. There's a few cool features with Unbounce actually. One is that you can create multiple variants of a landing page. So, let's say you have three different variants out there. You can have it to where Unbounce sends a third of the traffic to each different one,
Mhm.
and eventually it gets enough data and it knows who's more likely to convert on the different types of variants,
Mhm.
which is a cool feature there. And then of course you have the dynamic text insertion, so we can replace some of the text with a keyword or a city. We can basically make one page stand out for 100 different services depending on how
Mhm.
that dynamic search is set up. So that's a couple cool features with what we're using within Unbounce. Outside of that, landing pages, like you said, I'd say 95% of the time for a local service business, it does make sense to use landing pages. um, and really, the big thing here is there's two options. The user's either going to exit out the page or
Mhm.
they're going to convert.
Yep.
With a normal website, there's way more than two options for them. They can exit, they can convert, they can go to the 20 different pages on the site.
Yep.
Really easy for them to get distracted and lose sight of our true purpose here, which is to get them to convert. So
Mhm.
that's kind of why we use the landing pages in the first place. And then, of course, as far as the content of the landing page, um, you want to keep it short to the point and add the most relevant information possible. So typically, you want your testimonials on there, your services, any awards or accolades you have,
Mhm.
anything that can help build trust. And the way I see it is, you're pulling someone in from the search engine who may or may not know anything about your business.
Correct.
So you want to give them the most relevant information you can at a glance. And you probably have
Yeah,
30
you
to
want
60,
them to make a decision in like 30
yeah,
seconds.
you probably have 30 to 60 seconds for them to make a decision.
Mhm.
So you want to, include as much important information as possible that will entice them to do so. So if you have any promotions, that's another very important thing to add to the page.
Yep.
Trying to think of anything else, but those are typically the main things that we like to have on the landing page.
Yeah, it's like home, if you're a home service company, a lot of time we'll have like, can you get out there same day? Like
Mhm.
things like that. How long will a project take? Anything that you said in that the headline, what's going to differentiate you from your competitors? Like, can you do same day? Is your cost different for some reason or another?
Yep,
You know,
and, real quick, that's actually a very important thing to make
mm,
sure that the landing page is cohesive with the ad copy,
yeah.
because the more cohesive it is, again, Google's gonna benefit you more. It's gonna increase your landing page, experience score, which
Mhm.
It's going to increase your quality score, which is going to decrease your cost per click. And inevitably, you're going to have a lower lead cost as well. So with those landing pages, again, trying to make them as relevant as possible to the user search query ensures that um, the customer's experience is as seamless as possible
Yeah.
because they're searching for something, they're seeing an ad that pops up for that exact thing
Mhm.
with all the information they're looking for. And then once they click the ad, they're being driven to a landing page that has exactly what they're looking for, has all the information they're looking for.
Yeah. No, it needs to be as seamless as possible because a lot of I mean, I would argue to say, and I'm just pulling a number out of thin air, that 80 let's just say 75% of the people running Google Ads, there's no way that they can be effectively running Google Ads with the cost per leads that so we convert let's just go into like some of the numbers that we look at on a monthly
Mhm.
basis and track, obviously cost per lead. So a big thing with cost per lead is going to be the conversion rate on the landing page itself. We know that in home service companies, like the average conversion rate is like 4 or 5%. And we know, for our clients, usually we're sitting in that 15 to 20% range. We'd
Right.
like to be at that, 20% range, but usually we're in there. So we know that our cost per lead is X. I know that for a majority of our clients, if not all of our clients, that if our conversion rate, let's just say, went from 15 to 5%, our cost per lead now is increased, what, 3 times.
Threefold, yeah.
So, let's just say you're spending $150 a lead, now it's going to be, what, $450 a
Yeah.
lead? Uh, you know, when we set up estimates and we set up, KPIs in order to track this stuff, a majority of companies are not gonna be successful with a 5% conversion rate. So you need to do things to make sure you're converting as many people as possible. So when we're looking at, some of those key metrics, right? We have click-through rate, we have conversion rate, we have cost per acquisition. Obviously click-through rate is the number of people that see your ad, that then go ahead and, of course, click the ad. What would you say is like a good conversion rate?
Or click-through rate.
Click-through rate, excuse me.
Um, it really depends on the competitiveness of the industry. So if it's a competitive industry, um, you're probably looking at 3 to 5%. If
Mhm.
it's not a competitive industry, you're looking closer to 10%
Okay.
usually.
So if you're sitting at, let's just say 1 to 2%, you probably have some issues.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely want to, optimize your ad copy. Maybe you're bidding a bit too low and you're showing up at the bottom of the page. Um, there's definitely a few things that you want to diagnose if your click through rate's that low.
Sure.
Because if your click through rate's that low, you're not capitalizing on the amount of traffic that you could. And that's another big thing with click through rate is if your click through rate's too low, your
Mhm.
scalability is low.
Yep,
The
correct.
higher your click through rate, the more scalable your campaign is. And of course, if you're making money with Google Ads, you want to scale it as much as you can. So click through rate is, I think, a bit more important than people think.
Yeah, yeah. So we got click-through rate, then, of course, we got the people that are converting on the page. So setting up, your conversion rate, figuring that out is going to be important, and I always say if you're not measuring anything, it's pointless to spend
Hmm.
any money on marketing because if you don't know how well it's doing, how do you know how to expand, contract, continue making decisions based off of, you don't have anything to base any decisions off of. So we have the conversion rate. So then, really in order to obviously improve the conversion rate on a landing page is like some of the things you were just saying with the dynamic text on the landing page, making sure like above the fold you have some trust things that you have in
Hmm.
what differentiates you from your competitors, what are some issues that you probably are having, here's reviews and things like that. Um, when it comes to cost per acquisition, uh, I'm curious because, of course, when we have a discussion with our clients, we're like, hey, here's how much we're estimating, or we've already done this, or we already have a ton of clients that are doing
Hmm.
this. Obviously, you're in a different city. So maybe your city is going to be 5 to 10% more expensive, but we already have a good idea of how well this is going to work. Um, a lot of people don't even measure their cost per acquisition because they don't
Right.
even know what it is. So when we want to set up these key metrics, there's no way of knowing them without setting up analytics. So, what are some things that we do to set up analytics properly across the board when we're running ads?
Yeah, so there's a software that we use internally called Leads.
Mhm.
Super important, and that's kind of the main basis of our framework for analytics. And what that does is it includes both phone call tracking and form fill tracking. Um, and not only does it track the phone calls and form fills on a one platform, but it also integrates directly with Google Ads. So, we're able to send those phone calls and form fills right back to Google Ads to ensure that we have the best data possible. Because without accurate data,
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to optimize the campaign, effectively. So, that's kind of the big thing there. And then, of course, to back that up, we also, include Google Analytics as well, just so we have a bit more insight um, into how the users are interacting with the page.
Yeah, because when it comes to what we measure, I mean, we measure obviously breaking it down by campaigns, ad groups. We can look at in Google Ads. I mean, if you're working with a company and you don't have access or know some of this stuff, it's a problem because it's directly accessible in Google Ads, right? So you're able to know, you can even break it down by location and how well the different zip codes you have set up are
Mhm.
doing. So there's a ton of, data to actually get into, track, measure, and look at in order to improve your campaign. But we know a lot of the time, we see it all the time where the actual business doesn't actually even own the ad campaign. And say for I mean, we're dealing this actually right now, as usual. I probably say this all the time. But they're like, listen, this is under our ad campaign. You're going to have to start anew.
Mhm.
So now all of that data that they had, and we know they were spending a good amount of money on a monthly basis for years now, um, we're starting from scratch.
Yeah,
And
not really a big fan of agencies that do that.
yep.
The way I see it is when a client pays for a campaign, they're also paying for the data and the
Hmm.
account that comes with it. And
Hmm.
to not get that, after you're done with the relationship, it's kind of like blackmail on the agency part. It's like stay with us or you lose everything.
Yep. It's like a desperate measure.
Hmm.
I think I talked about our other client that we had this happen to last year, where we ended up essentially not being able to do anything, and then I don't know what's going on now. I still don't think he has access to his website after a year and a half or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
It's an absolute nightmare. So when it comes to red flags, I'm curious of just marketing companies when it comes to Google Ads. Besides obviously not owning your ad account, what are some red flags that you would see when it comes to a marketing agency talking about Google Ads?
Oh God. Um, that is a tough question. I'm not sure if I have a good answer to that off top.
So we know not owning anything, right?
Yeah.
I would say also, one red flag is if someone has multiple companies in the same industry in a city, right? So if
Hmm.
we work with like a roofing company, an HVAC company, a plumbing, I mean, you name it, we're not going to work with a competitor in the same
Oh
industry, in
yeah.
the same city, because then you're just competing with each other.
Mhm.
That's bad. It's bad business.
I would say another red flag is if the person that's actually actively managing your ad account is working on, 50 to 100 clients.
Hmm.
When's that leave them time to, actually give attention to your specific account?
Yep.
So that's another red flag because that's very common in our industry that, one ad person is expected to hold, 50 different accounts. And
Yes.
it's just not exactly feasible in my mind. So definitely another red flag there.
Well, let's just say you have 50 accounts. I mean, there's only so many working days. That means each account is getting less than a working day of hours because
Yeah.
you got meetings, you got other stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
So you're hardly getting any work done on a monthly basis.
And code reds happen, and as those happen, you're not going to be able to attend those in a timely manner
Yep.
if you have 49 other accounts. So that's definitely a red flag there.
Yeah. The other thing is like if you're talking to, I always feel like if someone is in charge of running your ad account that doesn't have a good amount of experience in running ads, okay, maybe you only have $500 to spend a month or whatever. Okay,
Hmm.
fine. That's a different story because you don't have enough to hire a marketing agency regardless. But, if you're spending a good amount of money and you have a good marketing budget and the company that you're using is, you know, you're talking to the person, they don't have a lot of experience in what they're doing, that's a red flag.
Oh yeah, that's a huge red
Or
flag.
they've
And
only been there for a certain amount of time, they're
hmm
new. Not to
That's
say anything bad about new people, but usually if that's happening, that means they're running through employees, which is
it's
not good.
extremely common in the space, especially with the larger agencies, because all that new work is going to the lower level employees that
Mhm.
don't have experience. They're just being thrown right in the shark tank, and that's not good for anyone because they're learning with the client's money,
Yep.
and that's kind of a lose lose situation there. So definitely another red flag there.
Yeah, that's why we like to, we work with franchises, but and one of our goals is to eventually be able to become one of the companies that is recommended to, different franchises. But we also know that that's like a double-edged sword
Hmm.
because it's you can only scale so quickly, right? You can only hire, you can only train and get people to work in a system that we know works really well with how we build out campaigns and ads now versus just all of a sudden we have to bring on, you know, let's just say 25, 30 new clients or whatever the number would be in 1 month. That's where the work just goes downhill. Because
Hmm.
all of a sudden the marketing company that maybe in the past was good, and we've actually seen this. Um, One massive company that just blew up, was one of the best Google ad and SEO companies previously. They blew up and now they have terrible reviews,
Hmm.
across the board because they expanded too quickly. And of course, when that happens, you have to hire people with no experience. And then you have people with no experience in managing accounts, and business owners get upset
Yeah, they
when
sure do.
their marketing dollars are not being put to well use. Um, what else we got?
Well, I would
Any
say one final red flag that
Yeah.
I got for you is whenever the client's not able to talk to the person, whenever they don't have access to the person working on their account, right?
Yep.
Of course, we have an account manager internally that the client typically works with, but all of our clients have access to, the person actually working on their account
Mhm.
whenever they need it. And it's not like that at every agency. So, I would say another red flag there is if you can't talk to the person working on your account, that's a major problem because there are some discussions that need to be made between the client and the person working on it in order for the campaign to, reach its maximum success.
Yeah, and a lot of the time we know that doesn't happen because they just outsource.
Yeah.
The people are out of the country,
Mhm.
and of course, you're never gonna be able to talk to them
Yep.
because the marketing company doesn't want you to talk to them.
Nope, only the account manager,
Yeah.
so
Yep. Any industry trends or news or updates before we get out of here? Anything changing with Google Ads? Anything we gotta be worried about or updates?
I would say nothing major, you know. They had the Google conference
What's
few months
third-party
back.
cookie removal on ads targeting?
Um, I don't think that'll be impacting us.
Okay, okay. Oh, the new AI the new, UI change you're a big fan of?
Yeah, the new UI change, I mean, it's not gonna be relevant to clients.
Yeah.
It's just a pain in the ass because, anyone who's working within Google Ads now has to relearn a completely new interface.
Yep.
And I'm not sure how many of you have been inside Google Ads, but there's hundreds of different buttons in there, hundreds of different things you can do within Google Ads. So when you rearrange all that,
Mhm.
it makes it really difficult for someone that's been working in it, for upwards of 10 years. So
Yeah, yeah. I got in there, I was like, "It changed?" And Matt's like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay. I'll take your word for it." Alright, cool. Well, that's all the time we have for today, Matt. Thank you for joining me.
of course,
So Matt McGrail again, Chief Performance Officer and partner at Vi Media and partner at Mogul Holdings as well. So if you work with us on the Google Ads side, you will most likely definitely talk to Matt. So which is good because as you know, he knows what he's talking about based on what we just talked about today. That is another Marketing Monday episode. As always, like, review, subscribe, leave a comment if you want to hear us talk about something. Please let us know. Uh, that's it. Thank you. We'll
yep.
see you all
Thank you
soon.
guys.